Okay, and let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start with Clay, and then we'll go with Travis.
So I'm going to talk about Facebook Live, which is how we in Payette have been streaming our story times, mainly because our Facebook page community is very, very strong here. We get a ton of likes. We have a ton of likes. People interact with us all the time. So when we were evaluating our community needs on how to do story time virtually, we went through and went, hey, 80% of the people who come to Storytime normally actually like and interact with our Facebook page. So this makes it really, really easy. So honestly, it's super simple to live stream on Facebook. So I'm going to share my screen really quick and show you, because I'm actually at our page. This is what it looks like. I'm obviously an admin on the library page. It's pretty straightforward. There are a couple of different ways to do this. We do this on an iPad. I'm currently on my laptop at the moment, so it looks a little differently. But you either hit the publish, create post, or for instance, on my desktop, I have a create live button, and you can just go live. Then it takes it a minute because my laptop's not the fastest thing. And it gives you a live producer on desktop, on your iPads, your Android devices, things like that. It doesn't go as in-depth, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so here, you're basically just creating another Facebook post. So I am obviously not sharing the camera at the moment on this, but you choose where it goes to. You can schedule it or go live now. We always go live now. Scheduling a live video is just as easy if you want to do a pre-recorded. We try and interact with people who are actively liking or commenting on it. We've been trying to build that interaction, that live interaction to people, because that's something that is very, very hard to get in a distance learning world. We always put the title in and then hit go live. I have that button grayed out at the moment because I don't have everything connected up to this laptop. It's really, really simple. I like that we get the likes and the comments right away. There is a slight delay, as with every live streaming. I will tell you now that I don't know of a live streaming that is 100% live because of bandwidth requirements. Normally it's anywhere from 6 to 30 seconds of delay most of the time. Sometimes with certain things, it can be up to a minute of delay. So sometimes we'll be going through and doing a song, and we'll hear from the participants, oh, we love this song so much, and we think it's the song that we're currently on, but it was actually the song that we did previously for this. Also, at the end of your live video, you can choose to save it or not. I will say that depending on the publishers, depending on the authors that you may have contacted to be sharing these things, some of them ask specifically that you do not save it to the platform. They are okay with you streaming it on Facebook Live, but not with you publishing it as a post. So be aware of that. The copyright rules and everything like that. There is a very good, I'm trying to remember, I have the page bookmarked. I think it's one of the ALA resources that is a COVID guideline of what the publishers are currently doing, their contact information. I will try and put that in the Google Doc for this. I have it up on my desktop right next to me, so I'll do that here in a little bit. The other thing I wanted to say is, when I first started on this, there were some options for stream codes, embedding the stream, etc. On our laptop, I actually use a program called Streamlabs OBS. It allows me to change scenes. So for instance, I can put the library logo at the beginning of my videos. It allows me to stream to multiple platforms at the same time, and it is free. There are other streaming programs out there that are free. I'm sure that Travis knows a few of them as well. We use Streamlabs. because it was really easy to set up and free. So for instance, I can switch the scene to where it will have me, and then it will have a little webcam picture of me reading a story, so I can put the story up. It will also allow me to like put the library logo or have a pre-recorded intro that I play first and then transition into a new screen with different sound or video inputs. So it makes life a lot easier when it comes to that. Makes things look a little more professionally done than I'm used to doing on our iPad. I actually used part of our CARES grant funding to purchase some more stream equipment for us so that we could kind of start to up that professional video recording capability. That's all I have. Facebook's really straightforward, honestly, guys. And
Well, just pretend though that like none of us know anything. So
right. And that's what I was getting to. Is anybody unclear on what I was talking about for Facebook live streaming something? Do you have any questions, or can I help in any way?
let me start off, Clay, by asking if people, because we're going to try to pull this into the My First Books visits. If people wanted to use this to do their My First Books visits, is there a way that they can do that so that only the kids that they're visiting can watch you live? Because otherwise everybody can see you live, right?
Yes, correct. The best way to do that is to create a closed Facebook group and only invite the people that you want to see it to that Facebook group. That is the only way for Facebook that you can do it easily, and then you could have it live. Or for instance, depending on your agreements with the publishers, etc., you could also leave it pre-recorded for, say, a week. That way, if a teacher's class can't make it, or, you know, school was out due to a holiday break or something like that, they could go back in and re-watch it again. It's pretty simple to create a Facebook group. Honestly, I haven't done it. We're probably going to do the My First Books through Zoom because that was easiest for the schools. At first, the school really did want to try and do it through Facebook, but then a lot of teachers realized that they would have to be logging into their Facebook at the school, and the school filters would need to be changed. So it being a social media site wasn't the best option for us as far as My First Books, but that depends on your community. So creating a closed Facebook group would be your best option, and then just adding those people into it.
Does anybody have a question about how to create a closed Facebook group? It's really okay to, you can put your
Yeah.
questions in the chat, or because we're all at different levels here.
So I created a private Facebook group so that I could invite My First Books kids. But when I went there, it no longer gave me the option to do anything live. Was I missing something somewhere? We were just going to kind of play with it, but I could, once I did a private group, I couldn't find a live video unless I just missed it somehow.
Let me
Would
look
that
here.
be on the admin that you showed, Clay, where it said you got a drop down menu of where you wanted to post the live video to? So you might have to do it maybe from your admin page.
Okay, that makes sense.
I don't know. I'm asking.
Well,
I am looking right now because I manage a few different pages. So
Does anybody else know for sure?
yes, that is actually it.
Okay.
I'm getting there right now. I'm navigating. And I will.
Lisa, are you able to get into your library's admin page for Facebook?
yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I just tried it from my end because I'm admin on multiple pages, and it does give me the option to go live. into a group, specific group.
From your admin page? Okay.
Yeah. And I will actually share my screen really quick and show you where that is on the desktop version so that you can see it directly. So over here on the side, you see post and my name. And I'm still in that same live. And then you could share to a page you manage, share to your timeline, or share in a group. And then it allows you to share in the 800 bajillion groups that I am a member of on Facebook. I honestly don't know what one I clicked on. Gooding, Idaho, so that Cindy can see it. So that's where it is over there on the side. And it will let you share in basically any group that allows it. You need to be careful, and probably if you're a member of 800,000 groups like I am, that you're clicking on the right group there, but that's how you do it. For instance, if I go back to share to a page you manage, it's only going to give me the Payette Public Library because that's the only page I am currently managing. Oh, or not. I'm a Make It Idaho manager or admin apparently. So that's how you do that.
And Clay, could you address on these other buttons on getting started? Would they use camera? I don't know what like a
down
stream
here,
key.
get started. Using a stream key is something more advanced. Also, never give your stream key to anyone. It will give you a hyperlink. Never give that to anybody because they can directly broadcast under your name with that stream key. So use camera as the one you want to click on most. Let me, because that's the camera on the device that you're using. Mine says camera issue because my camera is currently being used and can't be used for anything else. You could also use a paired encoder, which is an external device that you have. For instance, if you had a camcorder or a DSLR set up to stream through, it's not the internal camera, it's an external camera. And it would give you options from there. Sorry. Underneath settings, so your stream, it gives you some different settings here. Facebook's actually come a long way when it comes to live streaming. They're really trying to get into the content creator world. So they've added quite a few things. So for instance, you can unpublish the video after live video ends. If you only want it to be live, it would just go away. Remember though, terms of service are a thing. You don't own what you post on Facebook. You don't own what you post on most platforms. That's just the way most terms of service are set up. You can turn on auto captions, allow viewers to rewind. I definitely recommend leaving that one there. Comments, you can choose who can comments. You can make sure that people can only comment every 10 seconds. Restrict them to accounts that are less than 2 weeks old. It's just to prevent spam. Most of us won't have thousands of people viewing our videos. So if it becomes a problem, then those are the issues that you want to look into. Setup, selecting a media source. I don't have any connected at the moment, so it's not going to allow me to select a camera or a microphone source. This, I could screen share my Facebook Live video and show people exactly what I'm looking at right here, if you need to. For live streaming a story time, that's probably not required, but you could do that as well. Any other questions?
So it's probably a good idea to start a group with like your Uncle Joe and your Aunt Karen, who are really forgiving. Practice this a couple times.
Yes.
And see how that goes.
Yeah. And a big thing here is one of the big things about creating content, about live streaming, about doing any of this stuff is you're really like your first one. I go back and look at some of the stuff that I recorded when I very first started recording things, and I go, oh my gosh, that was terrible. Because it was, and that's okay. People enjoyed it and people liked it, and nobody noticed the difference. But as the content creator, you're going to be the harshest on yourself. What basic equipment do we need to even start practicing? A smartphone. There are people out there with millions and millions and millions of views every day that all they do is use their iPhone. To go in depth more, yes, you need to start adding some cameras, some lighting. I will say that lighting is very important. If you look at my lighting and my camera versus Travis's camera and Travis's lighting, I look very washed out. There's not very good lighting frame. You can see Travis very clearly. You can see Stacy very clearly. Most of you have way better lighting than I do. Even Cindy has way better lighting than I do with her blinds closed behind her. I have terrible lighting here in my office with no natural light whatsoever. This is what it looks like when you just have overheads. Outdoor light is wonderful. And so is getting the lighting right. Lighting is very important. Sound is very important. Other than that, people really won't notice the little things that you notice. For instance, almost every time I'm on a Zoom call, I turn around to make sure I have the right month on my calendar because I don't use that calendar very often.
That's a really good point, Clay, to choose your background carefully. Make sure you know kind of what's in the background because, again, the little ones get really distracted by what you've got going on behind you and around you. Do you think like a wireless mic is a good idea to kind of focus that sound into the video, Clay?
I do. I like wireless microphones. I'm currently on a laptop microphone. We have a very nice wireless microphone setup that we inherited here at the library. It works wonderfully for directing that sound in. I will say that getting into microphones can get quite expensive, but even like a solid USB headset can work wonders. We do a lot of music and movement, so the wireless ones work great for us. So we tend to go that direction.
So did we answer the question of what basic equipment you need to start doing something like this? If there was more information needed, let's see, who had that in there? Melissa. If you can let us know if we answered that or if you have additional questions in the chat box, that'd be great. And then Erin is just commenting that outdoor lighting is good, but the background is not usually. So definitely keep that. Maybe you've got a brick wall that you can stand up against. Okay, and Clay, do you think, is there a way to put a link to any of the videos that you've done for Facebook on that Google Doc, just so that somebody could see what that might look like?
Yes, I can.
Okay.
I will post up our most recent one that we did just this morning. You do not have to have a Facebook account to view the videos that we have that are public.
Okay.
Ours we only leave up for a month, and then we delete them, pull them down permanently. So while the link I post today will probably only be good until sometime in late October. So.
And keep in mind that's his public one. What we're talking about doing here for My First Books would be more for a private group. So again, I don't know that there would really be copyright issues with reading the story that we're featuring. If it's a closed group and it's maybe only there for a certain amount of time, and you're only giving that, you're only inviting those that you need to invite. How do we have comments about how that might work? Is that something where you would just create the group with the classroom teachers, or do you think that you would create a group with the parents of the kids so that the parents could view it at home? What are everybody's thoughts on that? Go ahead, Cindy.
I've been doing Zoom meetings that I create with each classroom for our Migrant Head Start. It was a way that we could partner and and still be able to get in there. It's been a little bit choppy. We've done it 3 times now, but we do it every 2 weeks. And I do one for their infants and toddlers, and then one for their preschool age kids. And I just read them books, do some songs, some feltboard stories type things, and it's just up for, I don't record them. So if you miss it, you miss it. And it's just a Zoom meeting, and it seems to be working really well. I'm getting more confident in doing it. But the comment you made about make sure what's in your background, it makes a huge difference. Green screens would be great for all of us.
If anybody applied for one of our CARES grants, and in your budget you stated equipment for streaming, a green screen and a nice camera is definitely something you should take a look at. And I don't, if Clay or Travis has any suggestions for equipment that you found success with, not to promote any certain brand or anything, but if there are some things you found and you want to share those on the Google Doc, that would be great for people who are looking at, because I mean, well, you get into that to buy something and there's 11-7 different choices and you don't know, what's good. So, okay, all right. And if we have other questions about Facebook Live, we can, if you think of those, put them in the chat and we'll come back and circle around to that. So, okay. Clay, thank you so much for sharing that. All right, and we will talk about Zoom as well, but I want to move to Travis, and he is going to talk about Google Hangouts and YouTube. Is that right, or am I just making that up?
I was going to do Hangouts and Zoom. I've never used the YouTube, but I'm assuming it's very similar to what Facebook is doing.
Okay.
Setting
all
up
right.
a stream.
Well, take it away.
Okay. Well, since we're on Zoom, we can start taking a look at Zoom. I see in the call here, I've got Barbara and Nicole from Radian, who the 3 of us have we've been, I don't know, for a few months now doing a weekly story time, preschool story time that we're doing via Zoom. So we can start with that. Our library just purchased a pro account. So we're able to access Zoom with sort of all of its features, and I can show you some of those kind of things. How many people most people run a Zoom meeting, or I know you've attended them, but most people run a Zoom meeting, so you kind of know a lot of the basics of the controls and that kind of stuff. I
wouldn't assume too much.
No, okay. Well, we can look at a few things, but I can just show you kind of like, I was just going to kind of talk through the process of what we do for when we were talking about, when we're doing preschool story times, which will pretty much inform us the same thing, we would do with schools and going into the classrooms. What I would envision, we're still, on our end, we're still communicating with a lot of our schools, but all of our first book visits, at least the people that I've contacted, they all want live, interactive story times, which, am I correct, Clay? There's no, other than commenting, there's no two-way feedback on like streaming for Facebook. It's one way, it's us talking to them, and then they could interact by typing, correct?
Right, they could react or type, but there is no two-way true interaction, which is why we're also using Zoom for our My First Book stuff.
Yeah, so, Zoom and Google Meet are 2 options for doing that. And that's, again, what we've heard is, and that's, I think that best replicates us actually being able to go into a classroom, is being able to have that feedback. And so you're looking at your Zoom screen and all the different people that you see there, essentially, each one of those would be a classroom. That's how I would assume, unless they have people coming from, and that's one of the things we're still going to talk about as far as if some of the kids are studying at home, being able to get them the link so they could participate. So the idea would be each of the feeds would either be a shot of like an entire classroom, and then probably with sporadic kids from home is how that's how I'm anticipate this going. So there's certain things that you can do. And let me share this screen just to show people kind of some of let me see. Let me share this screen. I want to see if I can. Okay. So I'm showing my screen. So it doesn't show exactly what I'm looking at as far as what you're looking at as far as Zoom goes, because once I'm sharing my screen now, I see my screen. I don't see everybody, but I can still see everybody over here on the right. And I can kind of play around. There's always like different cameras that you can kind of play around to look at different people, see who else is on here. But I was just going to show you some of the tools up here. Of course, you can, and then this is how, if you go, the one on the left here is going to be your audio. So if I click this, I would mute myself. If I click this little arrow, it's going to give me different options. So if I wanted to plug in a microphone, and I do have a little mic we can play with, or I can put in. You can go in and change what if you were going to add like an external microphone or an external camera, this is where you would do it. Also in here is you can mess with the audio settings, and then you can also go and test just to make sure your speaker's working and your microphone's working before you ever get onto a call. The next one over is about the video. And so again, it will give you, if you go in here, it'll give you things. If I had another camera hooked up, it would give me that option. Like when we do it when we do our preschool story time, what we do, which if you can do this, I would highly recommend it, just because what we do is we have somebody on a computer, and then we also have an external camera. So the person doing the story time can kind of just focus on the story time. And then that external camera hooks by USB to the computer. So you could have a second staff person there to sort of monitor the call to see if there's any tech issues, if there's any like chats, that kind of thing. The other thing I found a lot when we're doing our story times is having somebody there just watching all the other participants. Like I'll tell, because they'll be doing the story time, they're doing a bunch of different things, but then all of a sudden I'll be able to say, oh, look, Cole has been raising his hand for the last couple of minutes. He really wants to comment about something. Let's talk to him, or we do a show and tell, and somebody. So it's kind of easier to have somebody else looking for those kind of things, monitoring the chats. If something weird happens, if you get cut off, that kind of thing. If you can divide that work and having two people do it, it really helps take, I think, the stress off of the person doing the performance, and they can just concentrate on the story time, and then sort of having somebody behind the scenes engineer it. But to best do that, you would have to have like an external camera. So somebody could be watching the computer, and then the camera would be in front of the person doing the story time. But anyway, this is where the stop video, or the video is over here where you would change it if you had different cameras. And then you can change the settings. Here's another thing you can do.
Travis, I think that I think your screen is sort of, I'm not sure where you're pointing to.
Oh,
but we're not really seeing all those
Oh,
voices.
you know what? That's another thing about, let's see. That's another thing about Zoom is that it doesn't necessarily show you the menus that I'm doing because it hides it all because it assumes you don't want to see that. Let me see here. Can I? Well, we'll go back out and I'll kind of show you, but it's the best way. Let me do this. If you're looking, so we're all looking at the same screen. I mean, you see me, you see everybody else, but down at the bottom, if you move your mouse, and you'll see a little screen that comes up on the right-hand side. There's a red button that says leave. And on the left-hand side, there's mute. You'll probably see mute and then there's a video button. Do you see those over there? That's where all of those are. And then there's the little arrows right to the right of each of those keys. So if you go over to like stop video and click to the right of it, it'll say, it'll open up a submenu for settings for the different cameras. So you want to click on the little arrows to the right, and that's how you get those options. Sorry. I forget that Zoom doesn't actually show you the toolbar. So you'll have to see it yourself. But, so say if you go on to stop video on the right-hand side where the little arrow is and you click up, you get options. You can do, here's another option, depending on where you're doing your video from. We've sort of all seen a lot of this kind of stuff where, we get pretty casual at home, that if you want to block out some of the stuff behind you, you can do it what's called a choose a virtual background. And then it has some default sort of pictures up there. You can also put your own up. You can also put your own up. So let's see if I'm going to just try this here. Oh, come on. Hold on, it's making me update something. 1 second. Sorry, just give me 1 sec. All right. All right, so there, I've changed my background. Yeah, and Clay's changed his. So the clearer your background is, because it's kind of looking for a green type screen. That's kind of what I have my little green screen back here I've been testing out for making videos for the library. So you can put anything back here. You can just put your logo, you can put, whatever you want to put back here. So, but it at least it's a way to stop, if you just don't want people necessarily to see what's going on behind you. I wouldn't put anything that's too distracting, but so anyway, that's how you would do that. We have a green screen that we're sort of using at our preschool story time, but we haven't really been using it for Zoom. We've been talking about like doing sort of things like you could make your own graphic and put it behind there to refer to like what you're talking about on Storytime, or if you want to talk about shapes, you can make your own shapes graphic and kind of put it on behind you, almost like a newscaster or something, or the weather. But it takes a little playing to make it all get in the right place behind you. So, so that's an option. And then the other things that you'll see down at the bottom, you'll see there's different options for security, which is basically what you can allow people to do, whether you want to let them rename themselves when they come in, whether you want to let them access the chat, whether you want them to be able to share screen. So you can do that. You can also create settings before you even start your meeting that will have all of that stuff there, so you don't have to worry about it when you get in. It'll also allow you to see the participants. So if you click on the little participants chat box, it'll pop up and you'll see everybody that's in there. Depending on what permissions you have, like as a person that has that's sort of the hosting the meeting. I can do things like I can mute anybody. I can mute all with a push of the button. And then once I mute somebody, I can't automatically unmute them, but I can tell them, go ahead and unmute yourself, sort of thing. So what we typically do is we have a little talking time, and then we have like, okay, we're gonna do our story time. And so I'm gonna mute everybody. And then if and then we'll do our story time, and then we come back and tell people they can unmute, and we do a little talk afterwards. So that's an option you can use when you're doing your stories. You can say, okay, I'm going to mute anybody. I can't hear you, but if you have a question, raise your hand, and that kind of thing. And so depending on if you want to elicit feedback during the meeting or during the story time, or if you're just going to kind of do it. Other things on the bottom, there's a chat bubble. So when you click on and off that, you'll see the chat come up on the right-hand side. So you can see your chat. You can respond to chat through there. You can also go in and click on the chat box on the right-hand side. It'll say everyone by default, but then there's also, if you click on it, there's it'll show all the individual people in there. So if you click on it, you can send private messages or a private chat. So that's another option too. If if you didn't want to, if one of the classrooms was having troubles or something and you wanted just to talk to them, if you had somebody operating the chat feature, you could kind of just do that, or they can even chat just to you. When you set up the chat, these are all the options you have. But what we do is basically we set up the option so if who's running this thing chat, everybody would be able to see it, but if they respond, I'm the only one who'll see it. So just in case anybody, who knows what people could say. But, we just want to make sure, because it was one of the things that we were most worried about is doing this is security and hearing all the horror stories about Zoom bombing and people coming in and, thinking it's funny, but I don't think, a classroom with kids is going to find some of the things that I read about funny. So, so you definitely want to look at your settings. You don't want to allow open chatting. Don't want to allow screen sharing. But again, this is such a controlled environment. You're not really going to have to worry about it. But that also goes back to, again, you want to control kind of like who you're going to be giving the information to. Zoom will let you, and I'll show you how to do this, but you can copy a link that will get them right into the meeting just by clicking it. You don't have to do a password. Or you can send them information if you create it with a meeting, it'll give them a password. So you have the choice of like sort of how you want people to come into your meeting. So, does anybody have any questions about, see, there's a lot of questions about kind of what we've been talking about right now. Okay, cool. Stacy just shared the best practices. Yeah, and Barbara had said that was another thing that she does, or that we ask people to do, is that when they log in, that they change the names to the kids' names. So we can respond to them if they have questions rather than, the adults. So that's just another thing that's worked really well for us. So the advantage of the Pro Zoom, one of the biggest advantages, which I don't think, that it's going to probably apply depending on how many people you're going to have in your Zoom. It ups the amount of people that can be on one side, but it also takes off the restriction of, I think Zoom is right now at 40 minutes. So it'll let you have a 40-minute meeting, and then the free account will just cut you off. So if you're going to do the free account, Now you can, like, if you're going to do a couple of classes or something, you can do a 30-minute one and then create a new Zoom meeting for the next class, that sort of thing. And that will give you a whole new 40 minutes. But that's one of the reasons that people really jump up to that pro thing, is that they don't want to be cut off after 40 minutes. I think that's, I don't know if anybody else who's used Zoom have other reasons why the pro account is a little
Yeah, Travis, one of the things about that 40-minute time limit is that the time will start as soon as your first participant logs in. So if you have somebody who logs in early, that starts your 40 minutes. So you have to make sure you use, there's a setting that you can do that says don't allow participants to enter the room before the host. So you'd want to use that if you're going to use the free account.
Yeah, for sure. And then the other thing is we always use what's called a waiting room, which most people do, but basically that says you go into the waiting room and you're just waiting there until the host starts the meeting. So, so they basically, everybody sees each other when you want them to. Again, they don't come in early when you're not ready. It's like when you're ready, you push the button and it lets people in. Depending on how it's set up, like what we have with when we do our preschool story times, we have the setting that doesn't let everybody come in automatically. So anytime somebody comes in and wants to come in, they have to be let in. So we do that because, again, we just kind of want to see who's coming in, and knowing that when people come in, again, it's very hard to manage that if you're trying to run the Zoom, do a story time, and then keep an eye on people requesting to come in. So that's another great reason to have a second person, if you can do it, is that they can monitor people coming in 10 minutes late. Especially if you're going to have kids and families and stuff that are doing school from home, that's going to happen. And so that's a setting that you'll have to set up, that you can decide what to do, whether you want to allow everybody to come in at the same time, or automatically come in once the meeting starts, or whether you're going to let them in. So those are some settings that you can set up. Trying to see. Yes. Yeah. And then, right, for your waiting room, you can also tailor that to say, welcome to the Meridian Library. Welcome, to the Meridian Library First Book Story Time, just so they know that they're at the right place. And then you can let them in. There's a setting where you can go and change what your, put a logo in if you want, and put, just whatever text you'd like there. So, does anybody have any other questions about just operating the Zoom really quickly? I was just going to give you a quick overview of like the settings and setting up a meeting, if that sounds helpful. Let's see. Right, so Clay is just saying, right, just being able to have a second pair of eyes that is objective, that isn't, worried about, essentially performing. It's made all of the difference. We didn't really try it without it, but I knew when we were talking about this and it was still really new, just the fact that we made that decision, I think took a lot of pressure off the people who were performing. So, so if you can swing it, I highly recommend it. Okay. So any other questions along that line?
Travis, can you address if you are going to record your Zoom story time, so that you can do that, you would probably want to record to the cloud versus your device, because when you do it to your computer, you then have to transfer it to a YouTube video. You have to convert it to a YouTube video or something so that your people can view it. Whereas if you record it to the cloud, then they will send you automatically a link that then you could share with the teacher to share out with, you know, anybody who missed that story time, or if you wanted to do it that way, not saying that you have to do it that way.
Exactly. So it does give you the option when you go down, if it gives you the option to record, and again, the settings are going to be different for people. So like I don't, you know, right now it's recording, but it'll give you the option to record locally or to the cloud. There's also a setting, like an overall setting that you can by default just have it record. So you don't even have to think about it. So every time you have a meeting, it's just going to start recording to the cloud. The one thing I'm not 100% sure about is if a free account records to the cloud. I don't know that it does. I doubt it. I wouldn't trust it. So, and I think frankly, when I go out, I haven't got to the point with my first books that I'm doing to figure out, like, because both of the schools I'm doing is going to be with West Ada School District. And I don't know if they have a preference. One thing about Zoom is that to really use Zoom, the full functionality of it, you typically will have the software installed on the computer. So I don't know if that's an issue, and it can be an issue for things like if people are only using Chromebooks. When you log in, it does give you the option of looking at it through the browser. So people can do it, but typically, especially if you're going to be on the host end, you want to be on a device where you can install the software. But people don't necessarily need to have Zoom on their end to watch it. There's some higher level features that you won't necessarily be doing, like what are called breakout rooms, where you can send people to these little rooms on their own. But you can't do that if they're doing it only through the browser. But anything that I would anticipate you'd probably be doing for something like this, people could view it through their browser without installing Zoom. And then Google Meet just uses a browser. So there's no like that's one advantage for the Google Meet, is that there's no software to install. So do you want to should I just take a quick look at the settings just to show people how to do things like that?
Yeah, I think especially, Travis, show them how, if they're going to use Zoom, to switch that camera setting so that it's not mirrored when they're showing the book.
Oh, yeah, let's do that. That's perfect. So that setting is actually going to be in the meeting itself. By default, it will have that. So when I can't click on it to show you, but if you go down to this, where it has your video down on the lower left of the screen you're looking at, and click on the little triangle, and it'll have a thing called video settings. You click on the video settings, it's going to have, and this will actually have the settings for your audio, for share screens, for your virtual backgrounds. But what it will do also, it will have some different video options. So it'll have things like what's called mirror my video. It'll have things to say touch up my appearance. So I'll click on that and see what happens if I click on touch up my appearance. It should do I just did it. It should just do a little blur on me to soften the lens a little bit. But the one thing it does have is whether you want to mirror your video or not. And this is one thing that you can play with having it or not. And basically, if you click on it, when I click on it, it doesn't do anything to you, but it flips the view for me. So like right now, my video is not mirrored. So if I put up this hand over here and I'm looking at it, it's not like looking in a mirror. So I'm moving my right hand, but on the screen, it looks like my left hand. It's hard to explain, but if you do it yourself, but if you click on mirror your video, which I highly recommend, especially for story times, click on mirror your video. So it actually flips, so it looks like you're looking in a mirror. So now if I were to hold up, like if I was to hold up something that would have, text on it, the advantage is when I look at it and I'm looking at my right hand, it's going where my brain thinks it's going to go. The flip side is when you read this on here, it looks like the text is backwards on the screen. Don't worry, you guys, it's not backwards to you, right? You can, it says you can read challenge in powerful paper, but to me, it looks backwards. Don't get thrown by that. It's just making it better. It's more logical for your brain to look at the mirrored thing, and I can still read powerful paper challenge, but don't get freaked out when you look at, if you're looking at a monitor that has your, that has you on it, the fact that it's reversed, it's really not reversed. It's just making it so that's what you see. So that's especially helpful for story times when you're holding up a book, or if you're going to have like a felt board or something and you need to touch it. You can practice with and without it, but having it mirrored mirrors what your brain thinks you should be seeing. So, yeah. Yeah, so right, have another device logged in so you can see what your kids are seeing. So mirrors found, okay. So mirror your video found again is if you go into the lower right, or the lower left, sorry, where there's a button for video, there's a little arrow. If you open that up, and then there should be a thing that says video settings. And then under video, it's like the third thing down, you'll see like the camera and then my video. The second thing down is mirror my video. So hopefully you saw that. Okay, cool. Looks like got it. Okay. I don't know where we are. Oh, we're already at 3 o'clock. You want me to keep going here?
We're scheduled until 3:30, so I don't know what, and you're going to do Google Hangouts, right?
Yeah, I was going to do that. Let me just show you one really quick thing on share screen. I'll share just to show. When you go into Zoom, this is sort of the back end, and it'll have meetings. It'll have, you have the pro version, it'll have all your recordings. So this is where you would have your recordings. So like by default, we're recording all these preschool story times, but you can go into here and then get a link to share it either publicly, or there's different ways you can do it, but you can get a link to share this video. So that's one way. You can also download the video if you actually wanted to send it as an attachment. So this is what happens when you have them record on the cloud. So they're all saved there in your Zoom. And then under meetings, it'll have all the list of meetings that you have set up. So one thing I do for the preschool story time, we send out an email reminder and actually a text reminder the day before we go live, just to remind people that it's there. So it might be something that, I mean, I'm assuming you'll be talking with your partners, but if, you know, you might want to send out an email even to the school and say, you know, if you have any kids that are coming tomorrow, you might want to just remind them, send them an email, and that can have the link. So if I click on this preschool storytime link, it's going to have all the different information for it. But one thing it will have is this link right here where it says the invite link. If I do a right click on it here, and I copy that link address, and I send that to somebody, that link will open the meeting automatically. It will override the need to have a password to know anything. So be careful who you send that to, but that makes it easy for people. Or you can go into this copy invitation, and a lot of times when you go to a Zoom meeting, it'll have all of this information generated. And this was where you would have, if you decided to put a passcode, a meeting ID, that kind of stuff, along with information on if people wanted to call in, that sort of thing. So, and then in the meeting here, it will have different settings. So like when they come in, the participant's video will automatically be off. They have to turn it on. They have options like what we were talking about before. Can they join before the host is ready? No. Do you want them muted when they come in? We're not doing that, but you can. Here's another setting is that you automatically record in the cloud. So these are all different settings that you can have. And then Zoom has settings here that go sort of more deeply into things like, do you want a waiting room? Do you want to require a passcode? So anyway, these are all the settings that a pro account would have. I'm not 100% sure the difference would be between the basic account. But so I'm gonna copy, or I'm gonna contact my schools to see if they have a preference, or if their IT people have a preference, whether they allow Zoom to be installed, whether they'll be on machines that have Zoom.
Travis,
Yeah.
Travis, I have a quick question. Have you found that when you send those invites where you copy the whole Zoom, all those different phone numbers and everything, do you find that people have said that's confusing? Or, because I've started just giving them like just either the invite URL or the meeting ID, and that's all they really need. And I've often gotten rid of that. And I was just curious if people said anything.
What I've done, sort of the format of my email is like, here's the link. This should work. There shouldn't be anything else that you need. If for some reason it's asking you for passwords and that kind of stuff, I paste it at the very bottom and just say, here's the full stuff, but I don't make them navigate through it. And I just say, according to what Zoom tells us, you should click on this and just get into the waiting room. So, and that's always worked for us. We've never had a problem with that. But you just either copy or right click on that link in that settings to give that to people. And then we also, for every meeting that we do, because we publicize it on our website, but every week we have a new link. So we don't use the same link over and over again. That also helps to cut down on the threat of somebody sharing your link, getting bombed, whatever. That every month I would recommend doing a different link, and just sending that to your teachers. And you'll have to send that out again, but it's a way just to guarantee that it doesn't get shared to somebody who the next time you come in, all of a sudden there's somebody that has the link that they may have got a while ago. So,
Right.
let me see if there's anything else. Oh, they're asking about a discounted rate for Zoom. I've never heard of any sort of discounted rate for Zoom, like for education, but I don't know.
I wonder if it's worth looking at TechSoup or something like that. I might look that up.
Okay.
Yeah, go into that link I put in there that shows the different accounts, and look at the education account too, because I think that there are some things in that one that are a little more protected than on a regular Zoom account. So definitely check out, I put that link in the chat box.
Yeah. Okay. So that's Zoom. I mean, a ton of people use it. I think most people are using it. we can also take a little look here at Google Meet. It's really very similar. The advantage of using Google Meet, and it's the same sort of format. It has, it can, I think they've set it up so now they allow, I can't remember what the basic plan is, but right now, the free version, at least through September, I'll have to update this. They were giving everybody the unlimited, basically unlimited time meeting through September, but they were talking about extending that. But if you already have like the Google Suite for your school or your work, you already have Google Meet, and that will most likely be unlimited time for a meeting. So it kind of depends. You might just have to ask your school if they already have it. If you're already using Gmail and all of that kind of stuff for your library or your school, or you probably already have Meet. So has anybody ever used it before? No. We use it internally for our meetings just because we already have Google. And Zoom, we get, as I say, we have the pro account for Zoom. The thing about Zoom is, like, if there's a pro account, not everybody can necessarily access that as a host. You can access it to be part of a meeting, and then the host can give it to you, but you can't have unlimited hosts. So say if you have, like for us, we have a paid account for Meridian Library that they use a lot for, board meetings and just things like that. And then we have a programs account. But whenever I go in to run a preschool story time, I have to use that I can't use my own personal account. I have to use the paid programs account. And so we also have to finagle a little bit to make sure that, like, if I want to use this for first book, that somebody else isn't trying to use it for a virtual program. So it's one thing you have to take into consideration. If you have multiple people going to be logging into the same paid account, you just want to make sure that when you set up your monthly meetings, that it's not interfering with other people who potentially are setting up Zoom meetings. So it's just something to think about. So let's see, I'll do a share again and just show you. Again, it's going to be kind of like what happened here before with Clay, because my camera is being used for Zoom. So I'm not really going to be able to show you the camera on Google Meet, but I can at least show you the basics. So I'm going to share the screen here. So, oops. Let's do this. What we'll do. So you can access Google Meet a couple of different ways. I can just type in Google Meet. And then it will say, if I have a meeting scheduled, it will show up here, or I can just start a meeting. If I just click on it. The easiest way, usually when I'm making or want to create a meeting, is just going to like your Google Calendar. It will also give you an option. So say if I want to set up a meeting tomorrow, it will say, do I want to add Google Meet? So we'll just say test, and I'll say add the meeting. And now I've got a meeting. It gives me automatically a URL that I can go to. I can start the meeting right from my calendar. I can also click over here to get the ID, meaning the URL you would just send somebody to join your meeting, and then also a phone number if people needed a call. And you can again, if you then invite other people to that meeting, they will have this Google Meet information. So whoever that's going to join, they can join it right from their calendar. There's also a little, so either way it will do it. Oops, let's see, we'll save it. So then it would be in there when I go back in, I can just jump into my Google Meet. But let's go, we'll just start a meeting here. So I'm just gonna start this meeting, and then you can give it a name, you can give it a code. You don't have to, but this is just a meeting that you can give so other people know what it's called. Okay. So it's gonna say that my camera is not connected because I'm using it here again. This is sort of a preliminary screen before we jump in. So I can test my microphone. You can see that it's actually listening to my microphone, and I can just join. Okay. So again, once I join, I can copy this info here and send it as an email. I could add people right from here. So if they're in my contact list, I can invite people directly from the meeting. So now I'm on a meeting. It's instead of a video, it's just going to show me yes, it's the librarian. It's just going to show you like my icon or whatever. And then again, it'll kind of show you all the people that are on your meeting. If I had other people here, that sort of thing. You can do things like before, you can turn on captions, you can share your screen. Let me move this. So then you can do things like turn on full screen, turn on captions. It does not have like a green screen option like Zoom has. So if you're going to use this, you're going to have to use your background. It has two buttons up here for chat that you can turn on and for people. So you can monitor who's on the call. You can add people from here. There's the chat. You can chat with anybody. If there were other people in here, it would also give me the option to send it to individual people. And then if I go down on the lower left here, it's going to give me all the email, all the ability to copy the information that if I wanted to send it to somebody. Again, and you can get this from the calendar or from Google Meet if you have something scheduled. So that's how you can send people things. You can also do attachments that can either come from the calendar or you can add it to the meeting here. So again, it's not going to be a full representation of everything that's going to be going on because I don't have other people in this meeting, but it's something you can definitely test. It's pretty easy to do. As I say, I just go to Google Meet, and if your institution, the library already uses what's called the Google Suite or the G Suite, you will already have this function. If not, everybody who has like a Google account will have, if you log in with your Google account, it'll give you the Meet option. Again, if you give the link to anybody, it's just going to pop up in their browser. They're never going to need to install anything. So, if you've got people that like students or something that are at home working on Chromebooks or something, that's an option. Again, Zoom has an option as well.
There's a question about the time limit for Google Meet.
Google Meet has a time limit, but they've been suspending it ever since the pandemic started. And the last time I'd seen, I'm gonna look right here and see if they've done anything as far as talked about whether they've extended it.
While you do that, Travis, is there anybody here that's used Google Meet that has any tips or? I'm getting a lot of squinty eyes.
I use it a lot. We use it a lot. It works just fine. I almost say it's going to be what's comfortable with, the institution you're going with. Let me see. And what you have. I mean, if your library already has a paid Zoom account, then great. If you already have G Suite, that sort of operates, all of your communication, your email, that kind of stuff, you already have an unlimited Google Meet. So you might already have one of the two. So I would, that's another thing of just like to consider. Let's see. Well, rather than sit here and look at it, I should have looked at it before. You kind of
you can keep looking and let us know.
I'll update it in that document about the limits for a free account if they have any.
So how about questions? And we did also talk. There's the YouTube thing too, and I know a couple of you requested that, and so we can do I'll do a little groundwork and put something in that the Google Doc about using YouTube. But we've kind of talked about 3 pretty viable options, I think, to do your virtual story times for My First Books today. What about, and there is a question from Clay. Travis, can you record in Google Meet? I think you can. Yeah, yes, you can.
I was just looking to see if it's one of those things, if you can. I don't know that you can do it with a personal account. It's the same sort of thing. You can, as long as they have if they have the G Suite, I think that can be set up. I don't know if it is by default. I'll do some digging there and update that Google Doc as well.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions, just sort of logistically, about going in and doing these? I know some of you actually are able to do some face-to-face visits, depending on where you are. And then some of you, I gotta say, Lisa, you broke my heart when you told me you were going to be doing your story times and they were going to be looking at you through the window. And I went, what have we come to? that we're doing the story times on the lawn with the kids looking through the window. But bless your heart for doing that. And just all of you guys' dedication to trying all these things and getting outside your comfort zone. Do we have logistical questions from anybody, or someone who wants to put something to the collective brain, a question? Don't be shy. Does anybody want to share what they're going to do? A couple of you, Cindy, you said you've been using Zoom with your Migrant Seasonal Head Start folks.
I was going to update. I did find an answer about recording. You can record on Google Meet, but you need the G Suite, the G Suite product. So if your library uses that, you can record the meetings, but it's like a setting that has to be turned on by IT or something. But that is an option, but it's not on the free account.
There's a question just to everybody who's here. Any mistakes that anyone's made that they want to share for the rest of us? Share your successful failures.
Okay, I've made a couple of mistakes that I'll share. One was I sent the wrong link to the wrong group. So just double check that, a very human mistake. Another one is that I put down the wrong time in my book of when we were doing it. And so they were all waiting. And because it's not a set thing every time, I wasn't there. So make sure that you've got all that documented. I'm just sharing my big mistakes.
Thanks, Cindy. I think that a couple of those have happened to me too. So, and then Clay shared some there. If you read Clay's in the chat. And who is going to share next?
Oh, I was going to say basically what Nicole just said is what we've found is, it's like treat it like a story time. Like if you were in there and talking to the kids, if you need to stop and because it's always worth it, especially at the beginning, just to say, can everybody hear me? Or, if something's going wrong, do this, let us know, because as we've tried some different technology, I've been trying to get better microphones, but I find that one microphone that's great for audio was totally filtering out the music. And so Miss Nicole and Miss Barbara would be doing songs and the kids couldn't hear it. And the first time we did it, nobody told us about it. And then I think it was offline, somebody told that knew Nicole said, hey, we can't hear your songs. So I would say, kind of one, just tell people if they can't hear us, if there's any technology, like let us know, because, there's no way to really know what's going on the other end. And so I think setting that expectation and not being afraid to stop and move things around. And, we've moved cameras around because we're sitting down, but then we wanted to do a stand-up move around, but we have to go physically move the camera. No big deal.
I think, and there's definitely be reading in the chat there. I think for this program, and everybody's super busy, but if you can get your teacher to do a dry run with you, even just for like 5 minutes, you don't have to read the whole story, but just make sure that they can hear you, that they have, even our teachers, right, and especially if you're working like with daycares, they're not using Google Classroom or Zoom really right now. So they may not know how to turn up the volume on you or mute their mic. I would definitely see if you can do some dry runs with them. If you have more than one partner, maybe pull them all in together for one meeting, just so that, you can make sure that they know how to work the technology. Okay, so Gail, it sounds like we definitely, how many of you have met with your partner and discussed this virtual stuff specifically? A couple of you have. If you haven't, that really needs to be your first step. And I know, again, it's hard to get in touch with people right now, but it's just super important that you try to meet with them ASAP and use our little guide sheet that we did for the COVID, that version that we have for your distribution plan that is on their website and in your training materials, so that you can work through all the different things, but test the technology. I think whoever said you got to be able to laugh at yourself, I think that's going to be probably one of our best pieces of advice. I use the word we. I'm not in there doing this. You are. So the royal we, you. So I think what I would love to do is, we'll have this recording available and we have this Google Doc, but I would also like to maybe schedule, just for anybody who wants it, an informal check-in, like at the end of October, just see how things went and be able to help troubleshoot with each other. Would that be helpful? Just maybe, yeah, because again, you don't know what you don't know till you get in there and you don't know it. So maybe by that point, we'll have some more specific questions too. All right, any other, I want to keep us on time. Emmett's going face-to-face. Yeah, any other questions about how-tos? Barbara, did you have go ahead.
I'm going to say what I put in the chat, and make sure your props are not too small because it looks different on the camera. And Travis, you can attest to helping us with that too during story time.
I think that's another thing. If you have like a second person, Like sometimes I said, hey, Miss Barbara, let's hold the book a little closer, or let's hold the little mouse, because when you see it on the screen, sometimes you can't, in the moment, it's hard to tell what's going on. But if you have that second set of eyes that could say, let's hold it, a little closer. Because you can actually, like, if you watch the kids, you can see them like squinting, or they get really close to the camera because they can't see it. And so if you see a lot of that, you can start, that's why it's great to have a second set of eyes, just to see, like, even the nonverbal communication of what they're doing, about like what's working, what it's obvious they can't see it or something, or if somebody's waving or trying to get your attention.
Yeah, and I put there was something on the ALSC listserv recently, if anybody's on that, and they were talking about some of those, reading the book like by holding it up or reading it just down, or, and one of the, I copied and pasted the response from somebody in there that says that they log in with an iPad camera, and they have that focused in on the book. And so then they share that screen, so that when it's time to read the story time, they share screen to that view so that the book is right there, but they're still pinned next to that, so people can see the book and you at the same time, but you're not necessarily holding and reading the book. Does that make sense? So if you, not for probably the first timers, but as you start getting better at these, might be something to experiment with. But yeah, it's gonna be a huge learning curve for everybody. All right, any other advice?
I was going to say one final thing. When you're calling your teachers, testing out your story times and everything like that, take what they say is their loudest audio and go up by about 30 or 40 more percent, because when you have 20 children in there, we found that nobody could hear anything when there are 20 children breathing in the room. But when the teacher was in there, the teacher was going, wow, this is almost too loud. But then with all the children in there, it was very, very hard for the children in the back to hear. So it needs to be a lot louder than I think somebody standing alone in a classroom would think that it needed to be. So that is something to keep in mind, that it's a lot louder. It's going to need to be a lot louder than they're used to.
And maybe you need maybe they need external speakers to be able to get that volume up too. Yeah.
And sort of along that line, the other thing that we've found is, when you can, because we're on video, whatever you can do to show that you can actually see them kind of brings them back. Because, like, it's like, oh, that's why I try to point out, like, this person is desperately trying to show you their stuffed bunny. But even in the classroom, you might say, it's probably going to be too small to see their names, but, like, you in the striped shirt who are raising your hand, I see that, let them know that you can. I mean, it's going to take practice, but that's one of the things I'm thinking through, is like, it keeps them engaged when they say, oh yeah, he really can see us. Because I don't know that they always understand that.
Such an abstract concept for a 3-year-old. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And thanks again, a huge thank you to Travis and Clay for sharing their how to do this and their insights. Please do look at that Google Doc, and I will see if I can put that link in there one more time, because the first time it was kind of up there in the chat. So I'm going to end with that. Make sure that you take a look at that. And if you have tips, I don't have a section for tips yet, but you could start one. Just some of the tips we talked about here, feel free to stick those in the document as well. So, all right, everybody, I probably won't talk to you again before your first distribution. So I wish you the best of luck, and be patient with us as we get your enrollment numbers worked out and inventory. please count your books after they've quarantined so that we know if the numbers are right, and if we need to send you more books. And if you haven't registered for the Early Learning Academies, there's still time to do that. The first one starts Saturday. Love to see you guys participate. Great opportunity. I think that's all I have for my first books. Christina and Tina are working diligently to get those books counted every month, so big thank you to them. I'm working on your November bookworms now, so if you have any great story songs or finger plays for me, send them my way. And we'll set up a check-in for the end of October. Please feel free to call us if you need anything. And thank you. We'll see you.